What does it mean to have biases and errors in the decision-making process? Well, to begin with, a bias is simply a predisposition. It is something within yourself or the situation that abnormally affects the process that you would otherwise use in arriving at a conclusion. It is an overwhelming influence. And there can be many biases. As a matter of fact, biases could come in probably innumerable forms. Some very common ones are overconfidence in one's ability, hindsight bias, that is looking back and thinking that a decision was easier to make prior to the occurrence than it actually was. The anchoring effect, where you hover around wherever you start a negotiation or situation, framing how you frame up the context or the parameters of a particular decision, irrational escalation of commitment because of the existing level of commitment or effort that you put into something, predisposition towards immediate gratification, focusing on available information rather than searching for information, associating negative things about a person or situation because of past experiences with that person or similar situations. These are just some very common biases, but the effect of this is ultimately to influence the decision in a way that makes it so you don't come to a logical conclusion, or you're unable to appreciate the nature of the decision and the ultimate consequences of your potential course of action. It can lead to actions such as plunging in, which means going too quickly without considering all the evidence, frame blindness, not realizing that you're approaching something from a predisposition or given perspective, lack of ability to control the situation or context surrounding how you're going to address a problem, the inability to control the frame, the inability to appreciate your level of confidence in your judgment in a given scenario, short-sightedness and shortcutting the decision-making process, making intuitive decisions that are affected primarily by emotion or other elements rather than the logical process, the inability to control groups as part of the decision-making process, fooling yourself with regard to what feedback means and how you appreciate the nature of what others are saying or the responses you get with regard to the situation or courses of action, failure to keep track of information, failure to look back on your decision and the process for how you arrived there. All of these are just common errors that arise as a result of bias. So in summary, what does it mean for errors to arise in the decision-making process as a result of bias? It simply means that the presence of this bias affects the efficiency and proficiency of the decision-making process and thus affects the outcome that you arrive at as part of the decision-making process. Now, each of these biases and results can be discussed in grave detail, but this is the general framework under which biases and decision-making errors arise.